You're listening to Investigation Insiders by Integras Intelligence.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Investigations Insiders. This is Forhad. I hope you're all doing well and staying safe and enjoying the good weather that's coming our way. Joining me today are two of my favorite people. First, my right hand woman, Joe Mauro, who is back by popular demand. How are you, Joe?
I don't know about that, but I'll take it. I'm good, thank you. I'm happy to be back.
Um, and second is Michael Ginch, the newest member of our investigative team. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing well today. Thank you for having me on today's episode.
Absolutely. So everyone knows Joe and I. So just a quick background on Mike. He and I actually worked together at a different firm almost a decade ago, which is hard to believe. He left there while I was still there and followed his dream of becoming a law enforcement agent by joining the NYPD. And during his time there, interestingly, he patrolled the area where I lived, but where I do live. And we always stayed in touch. And late last year, we started having conversations about reconnecting. Obviously, we came to an agreement, and Mike joined the firm in January of this year as one of our managers handling investigations. I know Joe would concur here, we are very, very glad to have him on board. Hopefully, Mike, the feeling is mutual.
It sure is.
Many people know us for providing background screening and due diligence services. And obviously, this is a major component of what we do for people. We actually provide quite a bit more support to our clients. That, I mean, includes everything from TSCM surveys, so bug sweeps, to supply chain investigations and consulting and security consulting, just to name a few things. And in fact, the inspiration for today's show comes from a multinational Fortune 100 company that reached out to us about a month or two ago saying that there's been a spike in what's called swatting incidents in the sector that they're in, and they had some concern and requested our assistance in sort of coming up with a plan and providing some information to their executives. And so we thought, as we and we've heard from other people as well, and so we thought we'd put out a episode that might give people some food for thought and get them thinking, and help themselves from becoming a victim. So Joe, can you talk a little bit about what swatting is and where it originated from?
So, what does swatting mean? The definition, it's the action of somebody making a prank phone call or electronic call to 911 or other emergency services to try to have them dispatch a large amount of armed police officers or a SWAT team, if you will, right to a particular address. The term swatting was coined by the FBI as a result of the number of swatting incidents. So, what started at 2008 from online gamers who were trying to get back at each other over, I think it was $1.50 or $2 bet over a game. One didn't like the reaction from the other, so he called in this SWAT and had police go to this person's residence, saying that somebody was being taken hostage or there was some kind of incident, which, as you can tell, creates a large reaction for the neighborhood for this person. What it does is really scare the hell out of somebody. This little joke has turned into such a harmful activity for people, creating such fear and harm in the neighborhood, even death, I think, on certain instances.
Yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep. There's been a number of swatting incidents just recently in the news, and many schools, corporations, executives have been victims. And you couple this with the fact that there continues to be active shooter incidents all over the country. Rightfully so, people are on edge. So, Mike, maybe from speaking from a former law enforcement perspective, can you talk about how dangerous swatting is?
Yeah, of course. So swatting, it's definitely probably one of the most dangerous situations for both law enforcement and the individuals, at the location of the swatting event. When police arrive at the location, no one, has any idea why they're there. So this makes it extremely dangerous. And for example, like at a residential home, let's say it's late at night, early morning, you get woken up to a banging on your door. Your first reaction, what is that? And usually you're going to say, what the hell is happening? Is someone trying to break in? The panic kicks in and then your adrenaline starts going. In the situations where a homeowner, they go right to the door, they open it, police conducts their investigation, then there's no issues. But unfortunately, there could be many times where it becomes deadly. I actually read an article, it dates back almost a few years ago. There was a guy that was killed, I think it was in Kansas, as a result of a swatting incident. The police went there. They're responding to supposedly a guy that killed his whole family. Obviously, we found out later that that wasn't the case. But when the guy opened up the door, he came out. There was some type of, I believe, furtive movements, and he was ultimately shot and killed. What people don't realize is the 911 operators, they get these calls, and it's to the severe. It's those, I killed a family member. I have other family members tied up. I'm armed, and then they immediately hang up, and there's no callback. So you got to realize from a police officer view, it's extremely high stress. You don't know what you're responding to. And I'm sure, like, from a police standpoint, that you responded to many fake calls. Um, you're always told, treat every call as if it's the same. Not the same, I'm sorry. You got to go in there not knowing what you're going to be expecting. If you get complacent, it might be fake. You don't know what's going to happen ultimately. So that's, pretty much about, like, when you go to like a residential home, swatting events, just to go off a second, they could be, at a business, could be at a sporting event, any type, maybe a concert. But the two that we see is, like I just said, residential homes, and then, which is a very, crazy topic right now, at schools. This is just as dangerous because now you have a larger area. You have students, teachers, they don't know what's going on. So when they see a large presence, they're obviously not expecting that. Um, as from the police perspective, you have to go through that entire school. You got to make sure whatever that caller stated, obviously did not happen, or if it happened, that you have to, figure it out. And one of the biggest issues is the students and the staff, especially for swatting incidents, they're going to be surprised to see you. So
Right.
when you come into that room and they're extremely stern, they're telling you commands, lock the doors, don't speak to anyone, shut the windows, that just causes panic. And I think the biggest issue is when you hit like maybe even in some elementary schools, but more of the middle school and high school level, everyone now has a cell phone. So now you have these students, teachers texting their friends, their family, and they're telling them, hey, like, we're on lockdown. They said that there's a shooter or whatever it is. And now it becomes a huge ordeal when in reality, it's just a prank. So, I'm sure people will say, oh, why don't they just enter, speak to, like, let's say the front desk. And if they say, oh, no, like, there's nothing going on, like, we're sure of it, then you can just leave. You know, from the police perspective, you can't just do that anymore. And I'm sure maybe in the past that's what was done. But with the increase in school shootings, you can't take any chances. And what's crazy is I remember back, I think it was September of last year. I think there was over 90 swatting incidents across the United States, and it was all carried out by one person. I think the FBI, from the article that I read, I actually just read it a few days ago. The guy was supposedly from like Northern Africa. I don't think they ever found him. They just were able to pinpoint it. But it's crazy to think, that people actually do this for fun.
Yep. Yep. No, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And I can tell you just from being a parent, like my kids sometimes will receive emails saying, we received, whatever it is, a threat. We're looking into it. The school's on lockdown, and we'll advise you. I mean, immediately, just and this is what I do for a living. I find it to be very, very um, difficult to deal with, and even knowing that something could be going on is very difficult to deal with. So one of the challenges that law enforcement is facing regarding swatting is the fact that bad actors are typically very savvy. Like you're talking about the guy from Africa, and are able to mask their identities, which makes it impossible to find and punish these folks, right? So, Joe, what's being done about that?
In the U.S., I believe it was 2015, Congress passed the Interstate Swatting Hoax Act. So what this bill amends with the federal criminal code is to make this crime, this use of telecommunication systems, mail, or any other facility of interstate or foreign commerce to knowingly report false or misleading information with the intent to cause an emergency law enforcement response. This act makes the crime punished as a felony. Convictions for this act can lead to prison time, fines, other penalties, depending on a number of different factors. So I believe that that's a good deterrent for some people who think it's a joke. If they know about it, this might prevent them from taking action.
Sure. I mean, it's definitely all positive. But since the challenge is finding the people who are doing this, the penalties sometimes are almost a moot point. So it's really important that you take the right steps to not become a victim, right? The biggest thing to do is protect your privacy. So, Joe, can you provide some tips on how people can protect their privacy?
I sure can. We actually prepared something about this for our company. First thing would be to use a VPN, virtual private network. That limits the Wi-Fi, public Wi-Fi. People can get access to your information. You can avoid providing your email address. There are many people who, instead of providing their normal email address, will create a email, and that's just used for shopping or other activities that doesn't tie back to you. Same thing would apply with your phone number, cell number. Try to limit who you're giving this out to. Use of a password manager, which I think is very important because that protects your passwords instead of putting them in a notes tab or something that people can get access to. There's a lot of security levels to protect your passwords. Along with that is a multi-factor authentication program or app. I use an app on my phone, and that helps me protect it or getting the secondary text message. That's pretty helpful. Always secure your privacy settings on your phone, accounts, whatever you use. I double check everything to see who can access what. There's a lot happening behind the scenes that you don't realize. With that, don't install unnecessary or unknown apps on your phone. You don't know where it's going to go. And after doing all of that for yourself, you have to also talk to your friends and family and let them know that what they share, if they're putting out information about you or tagging you, they're jeopardizing your privacy as well. So definitely share that information with those around you.
Yeah, I think those are all really good points, Joe. And in fact, I mean, I think the FBI actually just put something out about like even using public chargers, right? Like if you go to a Starbucks or wherever where you plug in something to charge your phone, they're saying like, bad actors have infiltrated that to kind of extract personal information. So, I mean,
Uh,
all of those are really good points. And, it's interesting and like feel free to talk about this. Like there are people that are actively working to steal your data, right? Like, would you guys agree, Joe, that that's a factual statement?
100%. 100%. I come from a trusting mentality, but once you start hearing about it, thinking about it, and you think it's private information, but it's out there.
Right. And so like Mike, just going off of like police work, right? So when you think about like a physical threat against you, right? Someone is trying to physically attack you. It's inherent in our thought process to physically protect yourself, whether that's to run, whether that's to fight, whether that's to hide, whatever it might be. It's inherent, right, that you think of those things. But because this is like a silent, almost like undetected, not obvious, it's not in front of your face that it's attacking you, people can sometimes become complacent. What are your thoughts on that, Mike?
Yeah, no, it's 100% true. People don't realize, everyone has their everyday jobs, and there's people out there that their jobs is to try and steal your information, to sell it and then use it in, obviously in the wrong manner.
Yep, absolutely. So one of the things, as even with ourselves, once you listen to a conversation like this, right? It's probably too late already because there's information out there about all of us, right? And so assume that that's the case. There's some, a little, a lot, somewhere in between information out there about us, right? Assuming that's the case, what are some of the things, Mike, that you could do to sort of reclaim your privacy, once it's already been compromised?
So, honestly, the best thing that I could recommend is, first off, just do a simple Google search of your name. See what pops up. Keep it simple. Just do your first and last name. You're probably going to be surprised what information is actually out there. And because if you've never done this, you'd have no idea. It's crazy to think, that your address is out there, your phone number, even your email address. You'll see it might even show your employers. So the best thing to do is find out these websites that have this information that are making it public, and you have to contact each and every one and let them know, hey, you might have to prove that it's you, and let them know that you would like your information taken off. There are companies out there, you can reach out to them. I don't know how much they charge you. I'm sure it's a pretty penny, and they'll do the work for you. But I always tell people do it yourself. Reason for that, this way you can keep track of who you've already contacted. And what I would do next is every week, maybe every few days, do the name search again and see if these companies are actually following through with your request. Um, Unfortunately, this isn't going to happen overnight. In reality, it might even take months to limit what information is accessible online. But keyword there is limit, because I don't think everything is ever going to be removed from the internet.
Yep, definitely. So, one of the things that I want to go back to is related to this, right? Like, so from a law enforcement perspective, right? You talked about like the dangers of the police officers showing up, not the people that are there being, alerted and now nervous about, why are the police showing up? The police already on edge because of the report that's being made, right? Can you
Mhm.
talk about like the other issue of, resources, meaning police resources being tied up and basically responding to something that's fake, and then it turns out that it is fake, and now you have all these resources, the dangers that creates.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm sure everyone sees it now. Across the United States, unfortunately, there's a manpower issue with the police departments. Obviously, some departments are feeling it more than others. And just leaving the NYPD recently, there was a huge manpower issue. The biggest problem with that is, let's say someone calls in a swatting incident and you have, let's say, only 10 cops working that night. For a call like that, you know that all 10 cops are going to that location. So while you're there, and let's say it's at a school, if you're at that school, you got to realize there's, let's say, 50 to 100 classrooms. You're going room to room. And now let's say someone is really calling for help, needs the police assistance. Now, they're limited. You have these 10 cops that are, figuring out something that is ultimately just a prank. And you have someone who really needs the police is going to be, left there in the dust.
Yep. And
Awesome.
I'm following up on your reclaiming your privacy, like what you talked about there with this particular section, because again, it's one of those things where, like, I think we all play a role in protecting ourselves, right? I mean, because again, the police and other law enforcement agencies, I mean, there is a limit to how much, how quickly, all those kind of things they can respond, right? So by doing things yourself, you're protecting yourself, but you're also helping to protect others by not becoming a victim and drawing in resources that might be actually needed elsewhere. So, I
Good
guess,
point.
what's that?
It's a very good point.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's common sense, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's one of those things that if you're not thinking about it or you're not explicitly discussing it, I mean, how many people are really thinking about this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
yeah. So,
doesn't come up every day unless you're affected by it. It's not something that you think you're concerning yourself with.
yeah,
But when it
yeah.
does come up and you realize how much it affects the community and everybody involved, it's big.
Yep, yep. And I think Mike's points about, like, again, the resources being thin, I mean, that's really concerning, right? And it's not
Yeah.
because it could that could be for a wide variety of reasons, but at the end of the day, it's fact, right? It's
Yeah.
not a judgment. It's not a something that we're stating as kind of opinion. It's a factual thing. Mike, would you add anything to that part of the discussion?
Nah, I think we really covered everything.
Okay. So, for those that are listening to this episode, I think we can't stress how important protecting your personal data is, right? Unfortunately, this is one of those things where if you find out that there's a problem, it's harder to fix than if you were proactive about protecting your data, right? So, this is true both personally and professionally, right? So whether it is for your company executives, for you or your family, pay attention and do what you can to prevent from becoming a victim, right? And something like Joe mentioned earlier about educating your family and friends, right? I mean, even if you're able to impact one person or a couple of people by just talking about this, I mean, it will make us all safer. So, Joe, what are your thoughts on that?
I think yeah, I think it's important to remember that because everybody's like, well, it's my choice and I'll do what I want, and they don't realize how much it does impact other people that they know and love, but they're putting their information out just by sharing a picture and a location or here I am in my house, and then people can figure out where you are with some landmarks and stuff. So I think people need to remember it's not only about you and your choices. Your choices do affect other people.
Yep, absolutely. Mike, any last thoughts on the topic?
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of what you just said. You have to be proactive in this. You don't want to be reactive because by then it's too late.
Yeah.
Yep, 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 yep. So, anyone, I guess, listening that has any questions or concerns, please do follow up with us. There is a document that we put together that we'd be happy to send to you, which many of our clients and friends and family has found useful to kind of look at this, both holistically and, with some detail. Let us know and we'll definitely get that out to you. But, you know, thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Joe, for again joining me for another episode, and Mike for participating in your first of hopefully many.
Mhm.
And until next time, thank you all.
Don't forget to follow us. We are on LinkedIn and Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube.